Hello, I'm Rebecca of Pocketful of Poseys. Today's video is another pattern test for Kenna of Kenna Sews. It's a 1915 to 1917 dress, and I'm really excited to share it with you. It's based on an extant garment, and Kenna went through a lot of work and trouble to take this garment and turn it into a pattern. I had a lot of fun making this dress. Also, this dressing jacket was also from a pattern from an extant garment by Kenna, and I will link all of her information down below as well as links to the patterns. So without further ado, let's get to it. Here we go. Mock-up time. Hercules and I mocked up the bodice. My measurements are larger than the original garment, so the first change I made was to reduce the seam allowance on all of the bodice seams. I cut the ribbon waistband to the pattern length. This fitting told me that I needed to increase the waistband length and add additional inches to the bodice pieces. The waist of the bodice is gathered, so I didn't need to add a huge amount, but this style needs kind of a blousy look. Okay, so I am having a bit of a dilemma because I want to get started on this dress, and my original plan was to make a wearable mock-up, but I mean, it wasn't really going to be a mock-up. So I mocked up the bodice, and I know what changes I need to make, and I'm going to make a couple of changes to the skirt. Not a lot. I'm just going to add a little bit on some of the seams, not a ton. And so it's not going to be that, I'm not changing the skirt that much. And so I ordered just some poly taffeta, so because I wanted to do something that looked nice, because the original is fancy, but I didn't want to spend a ton of money on it, honestly. So I ordered some poly taffeta in a pretty burgundy color, and it still has not shipped. And this pattern test, it has a deadline. It's a 2-week turnaround, and it's already been a week, and I've only done the bodice mock-up because I was waiting for the fabric, and it looks like it's not coming. So I went through my fabrics to see if I had enough of anything, and I don't have enough. I have some other taffetas, but I don't have quite enough of them, and one of them I was saving for a different project, and I wouldn't have had enough of that anyway, but I digress. Anyway, so because I wanted it to be a fancy dress, but I also don't have like lace that will match my other fabrics and things like that. So this is what I've decided to do. I'm going to forego the fancy, and I'm going to use this plaid. I've been making a lot of plaid lately, it seems. It's pretty thin. I think it might be a voile. I'm not sure if it's 100% cotton or if it's a blend. I've had it for a while. I actually bought it originally for my 1840s Miss Piggy Muppet Christmas Carol dress, and then I proceeded to lose it and had to buy entirely different purple plaid fabric for that dress. So I found this fairly recently in a box that I assume I put in the box. I put it in the box so I would remember where it was, and then of course I didn't remember where it was when I needed it. But anyway, so it's not gonna be fancy. It's gonna be plaid, but I do have, for the center vesty part, I have this. This is silk. It's Dupioni, and I bought this years and years ago, and when I bought it, it said it was a yard, but it was not a yard. It was more than a yard. I never measured it. I've used it for different things, for different accents. Like I made a belt with it, and I made a reticule, I think. But anyway, so color wise, I'm going to kind of hold these two up together. This fabric has a pink line, and it's not a perfect match, but it's pretty close. So I think that I will use this for the vesty center part, and I do not have any lace for that matches these fabrics for the lace accents. I have this lace that I might just sew onto some of the Dupioni, so then it still has that lace accent, but it's not exactly. I'm gonna have to see how that lines up. Honestly, I wish I just had a piece of just white lace. We shall see. I ended up adding 1 inch total to the center back, 1/2 inch to the front side seams, and 1/2 inch to the center front. I increased the waistband length to fit my corseted waist measurement also. Hercules supervised as I cut out my pattern pieces. Starting with the pink silk vesty, I turned the edges under and top stitched them. And I gathered the bottom, which is left raw, but I did zigzag it for security. I added lace to the edges of the lace accent pieces. Matching marks, I pinned and sewed the tops of the vesty to the top edge. The neckline is bound with a bias strip. I sewed it on the machine, turned it over to the inside, and whip stitched it by hand to secure. The waist of the back piece is gathered. On the fronts, the shoulders are pleated. On to the only confusing, at least to me, part, the lapels and lapel extension. Kenna did tell me that she will be modifying the instructions in the final released pattern. She provided a video showing the lapels that helped me a lot though. The lapel extensions are sewn to the lapels, matching marks. I'm trying to figure out this lapel situation. I think the lapel piece with the extension, I've sewn those together, and I think they are sewn onto the front piece with the front piece on top, lapel on the inside, and then that's sewn, and then it's folded. Like the lapel is folded along its fold line, and then it gets folded again The extension is top stitched on the outside of the bodice, and then the lapel folds over to cover that stitching. I just realized that I did both of my front pieces the same direction. So, I'm going to unpick the lapel off of this one and unpick the pleats and redo this side. So snaps are used on the proper left side on the front and vestee. The right side of the vestee is sewn to the right front. Decorative buttons are added on the lapels. Next, the fronts and back are sewn at the shoulders and side seams. Then gathering stitches are run on the front waists. The right side of the vestee is stitched down to the right front. Quick try on with my corset to check the waist. Okay. So with my corset on, my waist measurement, where the bodice is sitting, is 48 inches. Okay, so the original is cut to 49 inches, and one end is turned over 1 inch. One is turned over by 2.5 inches. My piece is 53 inches. I'm going to pin it to the bottom of the bodice. But first, I added the snaps to the vestee. Now to pin the bodice waist to the waistband. Sleeves! The lower sleeves are sewn to the upper sleeves. Moving on to the cuffs, I sewed the cuff seams and turned and hemmed the bottom edges. Hercules was helpful, as always. Cuffs and sleeves are sewn right sides together and the sleeve is gathered to fit. I forgot to bind the raw edges. Oops. They're pinked, so it should be fine for now. Next, the sleeves are pinned into the arm size, matching marks, and gathering the top of the sleeves to fit. To the machine! I've started working on the skirt and have already made a big mistake. So the skirt front, it's cut on a fold, and one side has a pleat and the other side has a pleat and the closure. So it's got a placket, and it says right here, make this pleat on both sides, but cut and sew a closure only on the proper left side. Well, I cut through both sides. So I don't have enough fabric to recut this skirt piece. So what I'm going to do is just do the placket on the proper left side, and then I'm just going to sew it up. So I will have a little seam on the proper right side, and that's just going to be what it is. After checking the instructions, Hercules and I pinned the skirt seams. There's a pleat at each side seam to cover the seam towards the back. The front has pleats as well. On the proper left side, the front is pleated and laps over the left side edge, which has a placket. That's the closure, and it is secured with snaps. I pressed the pleats before adding the snaps. The proper right front is pleated and lapped over the right side edge and is secured down with decorative buttons. Now for the task of gathering the skirt to the waistband. The skirt waist edge is turned under on top of the waistband. Then the skirt is sewn down to the waistband. This skirt has a deep hem, and truthfully, I may have hemmed it a tad short because I forgot Freya isn't quite as tall as me, and I will wear my American Duchess Bernadettes with this dress, and they have a heel. I did the hem by hand. I prefer the look of that to a top-stitched hem. The final piece of the dress was the collar. It's bag-lined, and I didn't add interfacing, but probably should have. I also didn't bind it, just zigzagged and sewed it down with a whip stitch. I made belt option number 1. I added an inch to the back and front pieces to fit me. I used the plaid fabric for lining, and I pinned the lining pieces together to check the fit before I cut it out of my silk. I also interfaced the lining. Each belt piece is bag lined. I clipped the corners and turned the belt pieces right side out. After pressing, the back is lapped over the sides and basted down. The front is basted over the left side and left open on the right side for closure. Decorative buttons also hold the belt pieces together. 2 hooks and bars are sewn to the belt openings. And with that, the dress is complete. I really love this dress. I am so happy with the result. I'm also happy that my taffeta didn't show up on time because I'm kind of in love with this plaid. I definitely could have done a few things neater and worked harder to pattern match, but all in all, I'm super happy to add this dress to my 1910s costume collection. I may be a tad obsessed with this era now. Also, if you didn't know already from Instagram, we adopted our foster puppy, Kit Kat. Big thanks to my monthly supporters. You are awesome. How do you feel about 1910s fashion? Let me know in the comments and tell me what you're currently working on or planning. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you spending your time with me. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe if you haven't, and if you'd like to be notified whenever I upload, you can hit that little bell icon. To support the channel further, I have a Ko-fi account, and that is linked down below. Be sure to check out all of Kenna's links down below, and I will see you again on our next sewing adventure. Bye!